Thank you so much for taking the time to view this presentation deck. As our policies can change, please refer to the IRCC website for the most up-to-date information. This is Chapter 1 of a 3-part virtual series, Temporary Residence to Permanent Residence. The focus of Chapter 1 is what you need to know as a temporary resident. We encourage you to view all 3 chapters before joining us for a question and answer session. This presentation is also available in French. If you prefer to access this presentation in French, please go back to the IRCC page and click on the appropriate link. In late 2024, the Government of Canada updated its immigration plan. To ease pressure on housing and services, overall targets are being reduced. What's new this year? Temporary residents are now part of the plan. The goal is to lower the number of temporary residents to 5% of Canada's population by the end of 2026. However, if you're already working in Canada and applying to extend your work permit or change your status, you're not included in these targets. Canada still plans to welcome newcomers with the skills the economy needs. The focus is on helping more temporary residents, like students and workers, become permanent residents, especially in key areas like healthcare and skilled trades. In fact, over 40% of permanent residents in 2025 are expected to be people already living in Canada. Also, Canada aims to welcome 33,500 Francophone permanent residents outside Quebec in 2025, which is an 8.5% of the total admissions. The first and probably most important concept to understand is that you must always maintain valid status in Canada. As a temporary resident, your status is confirmed by having a valid visitor record, study permit, or work permit. This is different than a temporary resident visa in your passport or an electronic travel authorization, both of which are used to travel in Canada. If you apply to extend your time in Canada, it is likely that you may at some point have what we call maintained status. Maintained status refers to the status of a person who has applied to extend their status in Canada before their current status expires. If this is your situation, your current status will be maintained until a decision is made on the new application. It's important to note that if you leave Canada while your extension application is in process, you may lose your maintained status. To avoid this, we always encourage you to apply for an extension of your permit or status at least 3 months before your current status expires. Restoration of status in Canada allows individuals who have lost their temporary resident status to apply within 90 days to regain their legal status without having to leave the country. Many of you will want to travel outside of Canada to visit family or friends or simply to explore another country. Before you leave Canada, we encourage you to review what is required to come back into the country, such as a temporary resident visa or an electronic travel authorization. Because the requirements may vary, IRCC has created an immigration eligibility tool that asks you a few questions about your situation and will advise on what requirements you may need. Before you apply for a work permit, your employer must give you a copy of your employment contract. It must be written in English or French, one of the official languages in Canada. You and your employer must sign this contract. It must mention the same occupation, the same salary, and the same working conditions as those described in your job offer. If you are injured or ill at work, please inform your supervisor as soon as possible and consult a doctor. Your employer must allow you access to a healthcare provider such as a doctor, nurse, or pharmacist. Your employer is not required to pay for transportation to the hospital, clinic, doctor's office, or other healthcare service. You don't need your employer's permission to get treatment. You have the right to speak privately with the healthcare provider without your employer present. If you choose to have an immigration representative, ask people you trust to recommend someone. Get advice from several people before you choose. Find a licensed representative at canada.ca/immigration-representative. Ask about the representative's training and experience. For example, ask for references and find out how long they have been in business. Be careful of someone who won't answer your questions. Check that the representative is also authorized. Once you've chosen a representative, get a written contract or service agreement and read it carefully before you sign it. Make sure the contract lists the services the representative will give you, such as providing immigration advice or dealing with IRCC on your behalf. The contract should clearly indicate their fee. Beware of a representative who suggests you give false information or withhold information in your application. It's against the law. You could have your application refused, be denied entry to Canada, or be deported after you arrive. Don't sign any blank application forms or documents you cannot read. If you don't understand them, ask someone for help. Get copies of any documents your representative makes for you. Ask for a signed receipt when you pay your representative. Protect your money and remember that IRCC will never ask you to deposit money into a personal bank account or transfer money through a private money transfer company. Processing fees should be in Canadian dollars, and they're the same around the world. Fees in local currencies are based on official exchange rates. The National Occupational Classification, NOC, is Canada's official system for classifying jobs. It organizes all occupations in the country based on the type of work done and the skills required. It's used by employers, government agencies, and immigration programs to understand and compare different kinds of work. Every job has a unique 5-digit NOC code. The second digit of the code indicates the tier category. Tier stands for training, education, experience, and responsibilities. This structure helps determine the skill level of a job, which is important for immigration decisions. Why is it important for you to know about NOC? Most immigration programs, like Express Entry or the Provincial Nominee Program, require work experience in a specific NOC category. If you choose the wrong NOC, your application could be delayed or even refused. It also helps you match your job properly because it's not just about your job title. Officers also look at your job duties. You need to make sure your experience matches the main duties listed under the NOC code. It also impacts your documents because your reference letters and employment records must reflect the duties listed in NOC. This is how officers determine whether your experience is valid. Knowing your NOC helps you explore in-demand jobs, understand what qualifications are needed, and plan your next steps in Canada. You can find out more information or search for your NOC code by visiting the official National Occupational Classification website. This slide outlines the two primary pathways that employers use to hire foreign workers through a work permit. The Temporary Foreign Worker Program is for situations where there's a clear, temporary, or immediate labor need. This program requires a Labor Market Impact Assessment, LMIA, that shows that hiring a foreign worker will not negatively impact the Canadian labor market. The International Mobility Program, on the other hand, focuses on a broader economic, cultural, or reciprocal benefit to Canada. It is LMIA exempt program and streamlines the process for certain categories of workers. Employers should assess their needs and the specific eligibility criteria to determine the most appropriate pathway. Both programs play an important role in addressing labor gaps while supporting economic growth. What exactly is a Labor Market Impact Assessment, LMIA? It's a process that employers in Canada might need to complete before they can hire a foreign worker. This process is overseen by Employment and Social Development Canada, or ESDC. One of the main goals of the LMIA is to determine whether there are Canadians or permanent residents who are available and qualified for the job. In other words, employers need to show that they've tried to hire locally first before looking outside the country. The LMIA also confirms there's a real need for a foreign worker, whether it's due to a skill shortage or specific labor demands. In the end, the LMIA helps keep things balanced, protecting local job opportunities while allowing employers to fill positions when necessary. There are various situations where an LMIA exemption applies. Let me highlight a few examples. Youth exchange programs. These include programs like International Experience Canada and Young Professionals, which offer opportunities for young people to work in Canada. Significant benefit. This includes initiatives like Francophone mobility and other options for entrepreneurs aimed at individuals who bring significant benefit to Canada. International agreements. These cover professionals, technicians, and intra-company transferees that are often tied to trade agreements like the Canadian-US-Mexico Agreement, CUSMA. Provincial and territorial agreements. These include nominee programs designed to address local labor market needs in partnership with provinces and territories. Each of these exemptions plays a role in facilitating access to Canada's labor market while aligning with broader policy objectives. If you find that you fit into one of these categories, please go to our website and look under LMIA exemptions. Speak to your employer as they would need to review the directives in the employer portal for the compliance fee. Another important topic I want to discuss is work permits, as most of you are currently in Canada with that status. In Canada, work experience is not only a great asset when applying for PR, it's mandatory for some programs. Let's review two types of work permits. An employer-specific work permit lets you work in Canada based on the conditions on your work permit. It's important to know that if you're offered another job, you can change your place of employment. However, please ensure you have completed a new work permit application. You may not need to wait until your work permit application is approved to start your new job or work for a new employer. You can request authorization to work while we process your application via an IRCC web form. An open work permit is a work permit that is not tied to a specific job. The following are not required to apply for an open work permit: a labor market impact assessment, LMIA, proof that the employer has submitted an offer of employment in the employer portal, paid employer compliance fees. An open work permit allows the holder to work for any employer in Canada. It's only used in very specific situations, for example, post-graduation work permit, or the program family members can apply for based on the main applicant's work permit status. If you are already in Canada and wish to stay longer, you can apply to extend your work permit. It's important to submit your application before your current permit expires to maintain your legal status. Unless you hold an open work permit, your employer will need to support your application. While your extension application is being processed, you are allowed to stay and continue working. This is known as maintained status. In most cases, your employer will need to obtain a valid labor market impact assessment, LMIA, to support your application. If you are working in Quebec, you may also be required to obtain a Certificat d'Acceptation du Québec, CAQ. All applications for work permit extensions must be submitted online through the IRCC portal. Now let's talk about improving your job prospects in Canada. Begin by exploring employment opportunities on platforms such as Job Bank or another online platform. If your profession is regulated, it's essential to have your credentials recognized. This is particularly important for careers in healthcare, engineering, and other licensed fields. Ensure your resume and cover letter meet Canadian standards. They should be clear, concise, and tailored to each job application. Language skills play a vital role in expanding your opportunities. Strong proficiency in English or French can significantly enhance your employability. Finally, don't underestimate the value of networking. Attend industry events, join professional associations, and engage with others online to build meaningful connections that can support your career growth. Now that we've covered work permits, let's talk about spouses. As of January 2025, only spouses of certain international students and foreign workers are eligible to apply for an open work permit. In addition to what you see on the slide, the foreign worker must also have at least 16 months remaining on their work permit at the time when their spouse applies for the open work permit. Dependent children of foreign workers will no longer be eligible for a work permit, but they may still be eligible to enter Canada. Open work permits that were approved under previous measures and have not expired will remain valid. Spouses of workers covered by free trade agreements and those transitioning to permanent residence will not be impacted by these changes. Family members who no longer qualify for a family open work permit can apply for any type of work permit that they are eligible for under Canada's work permit programs. If you are a student, having Canadian work experience will be beneficial for you, especially if you want to apply for permanent residence, as it is a requirement for most economic immigration programs. Prior to beginning any type of work, you will want to review the conditions that are written on your study permit to see if you are authorized to work. It is extremely important to check these conditions on your study permit. Any violation of a work condition can cause issues for your temporary residence or future IRCC applications. What are the ways that you can gain work experience? The first way you can gain work experience is through on-campus employment. The second option is off-campus employment to a maximum of 24 hours per week. And lastly, you can gain work experience through a co-op internship opportunity. Let's quickly look at a work permit specific to recent graduates. A post-graduation work permit is a permit that is issued to recent graduates from eligible programs from Canadian designated learning institutions. The PGWP is an open work permit, which means you can work for any employer in Canada. The length of time that the permit is valid for will depend on the length of the study program you completed. If you apply for a PGWP within 90 days of receiving written confirmation stating you completed your education or before your study permit expires, whichever scenario comes first, you can begin working full-time hours immediately. If you're a student and want to learn more, IRCC offers information sessions about pathways to permanent residence. Visit the student section of the IRCC website to find out more. Now that we've talked about work permits, let's look at another helpful resource: organizations that offer support to newcomers in Canada. Settlement Provider Organization, or SPOs as they are commonly known, are community-based groups funded by IRCC and other partners. Their mission is to help newcomers like yourselves adjust to life in Canada. While many services are designed for permanent residents, some are also available to temporary residents depending on the organization. These services cover a wide range of needs. For example, if you're looking for a place to live, need help writing a resume, or want to improve your English or French, SPOs may be able to guide you. They also offer orientation sessions on how to navigate healthcare, banking, and public transit. For families, there are programs for children and youth, and even mental health support if you're feeling overwhelmed. It's important to know that not all services are available to everyone. Some are restricted to permanent residents or protected persons, but many SPOs do offer programs that are open to temporary residents like international students, temporary foreign workers, and refugee claimants. Always ask the organization directly about what you can access. To find SPOs near you, you can use IRCC's online settlement services finder. It's a great tool to search by location and service type. I recommend bookmarking it or taking a photo of this link. Question and answer sessions in English and French are available by clicking on the link on IRCC's permanent residence page and registering for a session. Questions are asked via Slido, and program advisors from IRCC will be answering your questions live. As always, for more information on topics discussed in this session, our website is an invaluable resource when it comes to understanding Canada's immigration system. For case-specific inquiries, please contact our Client Support Center Alternatively, you can use web form or your MyCIC account